Bonjour and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about a topic that has been very popular in personal finance communities, and that is the FIRE movement. If you've never heard of the FIRE movement, it stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early, and it's a practice or philosophy based around the idea that you save as much money as you can by decreasing or eliminating debt, decreasing your expenses, increasing your earnings, and putting the difference into income producing assets like index funds or real estate so you can achieve financial independence and the option to retire at any age. Well, the FIRE movement has gained a lot of popularity in the last few years. It's also gained some criticisms from people who dislike its principles and its practices. So in today's video, I'm going to go over some of the main criticisms and also counter arguments and evaluate whether or not the criticisms are valid in my experience and the experience of other people who have followed the FIRE journey. Reason number one is unrealistic or unsustainable goals. One of the main criticisms of the FIRE movement is that it promotes unrealistic or unsustainable goals, like that retiring in your 30s or 20s or 40s early is unrealistic and not feasible for most people, especially if you have a lot of debt, if you've got dependents like elderly parents or kids, or you have a low income. For example, let's say that you are a single parent, you've got a couple of kids, you've got a mortgage. It's unlikely that you're going to be able to save enough to retire early or reach financial independence, given that you have a lot of expenses that you've got to pay, and also that you could experience unexpected emergencies. If you've got a high cost of living and debts that are going to take a long time or difficult to get out of, you've got a low income and not a lot of prospects to increase that income, then you may struggle to achieve financial independence, and that can be daunting and demotivational. Moreover, some critics argue that the FIRE movement can be harmful to people's mental and emotional well-being because it is very difficult. It took me a couple of years to climb out of debt, and then 6 more years after that, saving for financial independence, aggressively cutting down debt and expenses and investing everything into investments like an S&P index fund. And it is very difficult. It can be daunting. It can feel overwhelming. It can be not very much fun. And for some people can lead to burnout, anxiety, or even depression, which could lead to long-term consequences to their health or well-being, because it is very difficult and you have to stay the course for many years, probably 6 to 10 years, in order to achieve financial independence. Another reason why people may hate the FIRE movement is because it requires significant sacrifice and trade-offs in terms of lifestyle, spending, and even career choices. In order to save enough money to retire early, people need to live frugally, avoid debt, and give up some luxuries and pleasures that make life enjoyable. It may not be easy to downsize your house or sell or trade in your favorite truck, or to forego eating out at nice restaurants, especially with friends. Those are the things that bring life joy, and some people say that it's just not worth it to them. They would rather spend a little bit more money and retire at 65 and enjoy their life and not have to sacrifice a lot of the things that they like to do, like a pleasurable vacation with their family or friends. Let's say that you are a foodie and you love eating out at restaurants. You're going to have to cook at home. You're going to have to cut back on eating out for a number of years. And for a lot of people, that's not worth it. It's not worth it not traveling, not going anywhere, not experiencing the world. I've traveled to over 50 countries, and I can tell you that when I started the FIRE journey, paying off debts, I didn't even leave the state for over 2 years, and that was hard. It was hard to do, and sometimes I questioned whether it was worth it, and to a lot of people, it's just not worth it. They would rather take that trip and not cut down so drastically. If you're a career-oriented person who wants to climb the corporate ladder, you might have to sacrifice some job opportunities and take a job that is high-paying that you might not want or might not really enjoy, just because you're doing it for the money, so you can have that extra money to put toward early retirement. So critics of the FIRE movement argue that these sacrifices and trade-offs just aren't worth it. They're too extreme, they're too limiting, and people shouldn't have to give up their passions and their interest for the sake of financial independence. A third reason people may hate the FIRE movement is because it may not be accessible or applicable to everyone, especially people who face hardships in their life or systematic barriers. Some critics argue that the FIRE movement is a product of privilege or inequality, and that only a select few that are born into the right circumstances can pursue early retirement. For example, let's say that you are raised in a low income background, you might not have the same access to opportunities as somebody from a wealthy family. You might also face discrimination or challenges in the job market, like a lot of Gen Z are experiencing growing up in this recession, or the recession that the millennials grew up in after 2008. There just weren't the opportunities in the job market, so it was more difficult for them, and still is, to buy a house or to save money, because their earnings may be limited. Their opportunities may be limited because of the economy or socioeconomic situations, or where they live, or their family situation. So they argued that it can perpetuate the wealth gap and exacerbate inequality by focusing on individual success and self-reliance rather on social and civic engagement. They argue that you should be more focused on your community and rather than just yourself, and focus on meaning and community involvement, and strive for financial independence that benefits the not only yourself but also the community as a whole, looking at the whole and the environment where you are, and not just solely saving up money on yourself, because that may tend to lead you more against charitable giving, because you're not going to give to charity your time and your money because you're so focused on putting money into your own investments to work towards your own financial independence. So the next argument about privilege and inequality is the proponents of the FIRE movement argue that it's not a one-size-fits-all for everybody. And like I just said, it needs to be customized to your specific benefit. If you have a difficult home situation, or you grew up in a family that didn't have a lot of money, that's not a reason to not try, to not set goals for yourself and to try to make your situation better. Because the more you try, the more you save, the better your situation should be. And it shouldn't be just, well, I'm going to give up because I have a lot of expenses, I have a lot of debt. That's all the more reason to continue to strive and make progress toward your financial journey. A fourth reason people may dislike or even hate the FIRE movement is because it relies heavily on long-term investment strategies and assumes a certain level of financial stability and predictability, which not everybody has, especially in this economy, in this environment. Your income could change, it could fluctuate, you could lose your job. The stock market and other investments fluctuate. They could be subject to failures, like the recent bank failures, economy failures, inflation, war. All of this could derail or delay retirement plans of FIRE enthusiasts, which makes it even more difficult to keep going when you're facing all of these challenges. For example, you may invest heavily in the stock market, and then the stock market could take a downturn. It could even tank, and your portfolio could be reduced drastically in size, and that will delay your early retirement maybe for years. If you invest in real estate and you have some unexpected costs, like tenants trash your house and they move out, you've got to take care of all that. You've got to plan for that, which could delay your financial independence target date and your retirement date, which will just make it harder to reach. So this criticism is an emphasis on investing in passive income can be risky and unpredictable. So you've got to plan for it, and that you need to have a diversified strategy to approach this, to plan for inevitable challenges to your portfolio, whether it be the economy or a downturn in the stock market or real estate or whatever you're investing in. It's difficult to plan for because of the unpredictability of certain assets that you might buy into. And lastly, that investing is risky. Well, it can be risky, but over the long run, the risk evens out. It gets less as your dollar cost averaging into assets like an index fund. Then it gets risky, especially if you've got money set aside in an emergency fund with 3 to 6 months of living expenses. You've got another bucket for retirement, another bucket for the next few years. You've got 3 buckets, near term, medium term, and long term. Then that reduces the risk, and you don't have to worry about fluctuations in the market, especially if you're not going to be taking that money out for years and years. If you are investing in real estate, you put money aside for those unexpected expenses. You can plan for the volatility and for the risk in the market. So that's not really a factor. So if you're getting ready to retire and when you're ready, the market is down and you're not quite feeling comfortable that you can retire, then you keep working, you keep bringing in money, and you roll with the punches, because that's part of investing, that's part of planning, and that's part of the FIRE movement, is being prepared for those downturns in the economy, those downturns in the stock market. It's not going to be easy, but I think that the more you save, the more you invest, and the more you get used to having those fluctuations in the market, then you come to expect them and plan for them. And the longer you are in the market, the easier it is to handle drops in the market. After you've gone through a bunch of those, then you realize that that's just part of the cycle, and that's just something that you are used to. And it's not a big deal. It's not stressful. It's just the way it is. So while these criticisms are valid and they're worth considering, there are also some counter arguments and rebuttals that might shed some light on the benefits and opportunities of the FIRE movement. Obviously, I believe in it because I spent nearly a decade getting out of debt, $200,000 of debt, saving up money, and preparing to reach financial independence. So I've got a couple of thoughts on some of these criticisms. Number one is that it perpetuates unrealistic or unsustainable goals. So does that mean that we should not have goals? If they are lofty goals, if they are difficult to achieve, we should just not even try? Proponents of the FIRE movement say that even if you make a little bit of progress, every step along the way gives you more freedom. It gives you more options. It's not about necessarily retiring after you hit a certain number or a certain age. It's about making progress. The more money you have in your bank account, the more of a cushion you've got, the more freedom and options you've got. The more FU money you have, the better you're going to be at your job, which I've talked about in other videos. The more control you have over your life, the more options you have to travel, to pursue a different job, maybe volunteer, donate your time. So it's not so much that the goal is unreachable, it's the journey along the way that we should pursue, trying to reach that goal. And every step along the way, we're doing better and better and freeing ourselves up by having extra money. The same could be said about sacrificing and trade-offs, that some of the trade-offs aren't worth it. And I think that's a valid criticism. The trade-offs you make financially are specific to every person. I might make different trade-offs than you, and you might make different trade-offs than me. For me, buying $200 pair of jeans is not worth it. I would rather buy something else. But I am totally happy to buy $200 road biking shoes because I love to road bike, and that's valuable to me. So everybody's values and goals are a little bit different, and we shouldn't judge people how they use their money, because everybody does something different, as long as though you're making choices that align with your values and goals. So the trade-offs you're willing to make is a little bit different. You might be happy retiring at 65, or you may want to retire in the next 5 to 10 years. That willingness to make different trade-offs is totally up to you. But recognizing that there are trade-offs, I think, is the important thing. That when you're spending a lot of money on a certain, maybe a luxury handbag, that money maybe could be better spent, invested in the long run, or maybe you value handbags more than early retirement. So that trade-off is different for everybody. So I think that's a valid argument. So there you have it. Some of the reasons why people may hate the FIRE movement, why they don't want to follow the FIRE philosophy, and some of my thoughts about each of the main reasons. What do you think? I know people have different opinions because I've seen people comment on some of my previous videos. Do you agree with the tenets of the FIRE movement? Are you striving toward financial independence yourself? Have you already done it? Please share in the comments below. I would love to hear your experiences. And if you found this video thought-provoking, then please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you're interested in hearing more about the FIRE movement, I made another video where I went into my experience and the things that I learned during the 8 years of getting out of $200,000 of debt, saving enough money to be financially independent, and then retire, and why I ultimately went back to work. You can see a link to that video here, and I'd love for you to check it out. And if you would like to hear more about the market and what's happening in the market and techniques and practices toward saving for financial independence, then subscribe to my free daily newsletter. You can find it at morningdownload.com or go to the link below this video and subscribe. It's free.